Sawadee Krap. This is Stuart J. Raj from J Academy, and we're in our first meeting after the initial film that you've seen of the 2014 Cracking Thai Fundamentals Challenge. We have Andrew, Sawadee Krap.
Sawadee Krap.
Sawadee Krap. And Richard.
Sawadee Krap.
Sawadee Krap. So basically what we want to do in this first clip here, first of all apologize that we haven't gone out on Google Hangouts as we promised. We're going to find a way around it, but believe it or not, Thailand is one of 3 countries that Google Hangouts is not available. So we need to find a way around that. But we're bringing it to you here, recording it together. The next time maybe you'll see us on Google Hangouts. First of all, Andrew, you've been at this for just over a week now, I think.
Yes.
Tell me a bit about what's happened so far.
What's happened so far is I've discovered that a lot of the Thai that I do speak, I don't speak correctly. But that's been a useful exercise. I think the whole part of the point of this, and particularly for someone who's been here for a number of years, was both to improve Thai, both in the quality, in the quantity of the language, but also in the quality of the language. And
Right.
it's very obvious that I speak Thai with a very English rhythm, I think is the word that you would sometimes use.
Well, I think the sound paradigm, and Andrew is, we've chosen somebody who has been here as a more longer term resident who thinks that their Thai is in a rut or really haven't developed past the basics.
Correct.
So this is where Andrew is, and it's interesting because there's a lot of unlearning that we've been doing.
Correct.
Now, Richard, what's happened for you?
For me, actually, it's pretty interesting because I didn't really speak Thai before. As I'm living here since almost 6 months, for me, in a way, it's a bit more easier to learn the tones as Andrew, because Andrew was doing some practice before, you know. So he went in a wrong way, let's say, in
Right,
the beginning. So with Stu, we were practicing all the tones. So I was trying to do the accent. For example, when I went with the taxi. So when I went home, I tried to tell them my address with that accent, what we were trying to pick up with Stu. So it's pretty much worked. Sometimes worked, sometimes not, because I still have to get used to it.
It's 1 week. It's 1 week.
It's just the first week, and I think this first section is preparing ourselves
Correct.
and learning new muscles.
Correct.
It's all about muscles, tones or vowels. And one interesting thing we've looked at, now do you remember the exercise we did? Supposing these are lions, tigers, bears, apples, oranges. What is it?
Lions, tigers,
bears, apples, oranges.
What are these last 3? Okay. Let's do it. What's the first 3?
Lions, tigers, apples, bears,
Yeah.
apples, oranges.
What is it? Say it again.
Lions, tigers, bears, apples, oranges.
Let's turn it into numbers. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Say the numbers.
None.
Oh, just in English.
One,
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So what we've learnt here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is what I call the listing paradigm in English.
Correct.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yep.
1, 2, 3. This happens so much in English where these tones are subconsciously put onto words.
Correct. And what I have found is that I've been using those same ideas in my Thai. So basically I finish the last word, or I finish it, if we just do a single word, I finish everything falling away, as
Right.
you would at the end of that list. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I do everything 5 at the end.
So
And
can
it's
you-
very, very difficult for me to, not difficult, but it's been obvious that's been one of my challenges with trying to keep a common tone or a flat tone is that I do automatically fall away, because that's the way I do it in English, and that's unfortunately with the Thai words I've learned, that's the way I've learnt those Thai words.
And it happens everywhere. Like for
Yeah.
example, in English you say hi.
Correct.
So you'll hear foreigners say Sawadee Krap.
Sawadee Krap.
Hi, Sawadee Krap instead of what should it?
Sawadee Krap.
Sawadee Krap.
Sawadee Krap.
Sawadee Krap.
Right? So it's different once you take those English contours away. Now let's have a look. Can you say this word after me? The.
We've had a few goes.
Now you see that he's been able to stay on level.
Okay.
Say these words for me. Ma, ka.
Ma, ka.
Look at that. Can you tell them what?
I'm annoying Stu here because for the last little while we've been going through this, it would be ma, ka, or even if I would hold it, it would be ka, and I would fall away every time because, I mean, a couple of little things that we've learned is that I always finish words with my mouth, which is what you do with English.
Right.
But Thais often finish their word with their throat. So
Okay, and so well, what is that point? Do you remember what happens to the Thai throat at the end of a syllable?
Actually, they just
Close it.
close it. So you don't close a word like your tone is not falling down. You just close it in your throat.
Right. So can we
Like,
give them, show them an example? Let's do this here. So let's do the word ma in a common tone.
Ma.
You see that? How it's cut off in his throat there. Let's do it again, Richard.
Ma.
Good. Let's try the word do, Andrew.
Do.
You see, he's cut it off in his throat.
Whereas before, what I
It
would
would
have done, do. Actually, I didn't do that too.
You didn't, you must have
Under pressure, I'm doing better. Trust me.
the muscles are falling into place.
Yeah, and it's an interesting exercise because if I can, as someone who has had a couple of Thai lessons before, but very much a few, there is an automatic assumption that there's tones. I think one of the things I've learned is that we actually all speak with tones, and that's part of what Stuart's point is here. English is spoken with a tone. Thais don't really necessarily speak with a tone; they just speak differently. And so part of the issue is that I've got English tones all over the top of everything, and it's actually taking those out and just speaking Thai.
So now, this first week, I think we've been conscious of some of these sound paradigms, these sound shapes that come from English or contours, and forcing them away. And Andrew is able to do that right now.
Just now, for the first bloody time. Sorry, I swore. For the first time. Sorry, edit that out.
And it's under pressure. And it's all in the throat.
Yeah, it is. And with some of the other sounds, it's the tongue and things like that.
And I think another thing now Richard is Hungarian, and Andrew is Australian or British born but Australian, so he speaks with an Australian accent. But one thing that we learned also with Richard's Hungarian, the vowels in Hungarian are much more pure. So in Australian English, if I have the word, the sound E, like H-E in English, he, how would an Australian say it?
Hey.
Hey.
I really put that on, but that's how an Australian would say.
Hey. Hey. It's a diphthong. E. Hey. The word I in, or to say the sound I or I in Australian Broad English would be?
I
or oi.
Yeah.
Or E. I. But can you say the sound E? E. Now in Richard's Hungarian sound base, the E, it's a pure sound. Now what's the difference between the English E and the Thai E?
E.
Yeah. So, well, what's the difference in the mouth shape? Do you remember?
The E.
Yeah.
E.
The way you put your tongue, the tongue basically.
Your tongue and it's a smiley.
Yeah.
E, salah, E. As if, but in English it's more rounded. E, he versus he.
Yeah. And then when you add the Australian accent on top of that, which is that AE sound, then you have this situation where you've actually got to strip that out to get back to the pure sound.
And you were doing that today, learning to work.
Today, but there's effort in that. But before, because before, when I was saying before about lessons, what happens is people just say, "Oh look, I understood," because it's usually a Thai person often who's teaching you, and they understand what you're saying because they understand a bit of English. For a Farang, your Thai is okay. I can understand what you're saying, but this thing of trying to get it right. No one's ever, and people have occasionally, and anyone who's spoken Thai, people have spoken to you about tones. They've all said, "Oh, there's all these tones," but in reality, I learned more in 20 minutes on that session that we did on the online one. I learned more in 20 minutes about what those tones are than I have in the 5 years I've been here. So I've heard all this, and you know, it's not rocket science. But
no,
it's just relearning.
Just breaking it down, and then to finish it up. Now, after the initial Cracking Thai fundamentals, you'll be reading books in Thai, and we'll be starting with the Darun Siksa, which is a kids' preschool book where you learn things.
Yes.
But I gave them a taste of that today, and a lot of people speak out about rote learning. But this is going to be coupling all the other stuff, and it actually helps program the subconscious and the muscle memory. So I'll just give you a taste. They've only had a couple of minutes of this, but see if you can do it. Ready?
He's going to get it.
Mo a
Mo a
ma.
ma.
So I'll say the letter and then you say it after me. Mo a ma.
Mo a ma.
ไม่เอกมา
Ma ek ma.
ไม้เอกมา
Okay, so กออากา
กออากา
ไม่เอกกา
ไม้เอกกา
Now, you see, now what happens in a Thai classroom, it'll be going on like this. กออากาไม่เอกกา
กออากาไม้เอกกา
ปออาปาไม่เอกป่า
Po a pa ma ek pa.
This is how it'll be going on. So once they get the letters under there and you're nailing what these tone contours and everything are, you're going to be able to have the tools now to start to program yourself. This is where we're heading for.
Sure.
But I think that's enough for this first clip there. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, Stuart.
Stay tuned, and we're going to hopefully come to you each week, and you'll be able to see them develop each week by week, and we'll see just in a couple of months how far we can bring both of your time. Thank you. Sawadee krap.
Sawadee krap.